family steam at home.
Hello, and I'm Miss Megan.
And we're here to talk about engineers. Does anyone know what an engineer does? Megan, do you know?
I know that engineers make new things.
That's right. Without engineers like Thomas Edison, we wouldn't have the light bulb. Or without Alexander Graham Bell, we wouldn't have the telephone. And we wouldn't have made it to space.
Did you know that NASA and SpaceX sent astronauts Robert Behnken and Douglas Hurley to the International Space Station? This is the first time since 2011 that the U.S. has sent astronauts to the International Space Station. You know what?
What?
Come to think of it, I remember a book about a little girl who was an engineer. Kids can be engineers too.
That's right. So what better way to celebrate engineers, big and small, as well as the space launch, than by having an astronaut in space read us a story?
Hello, and welcome to the International Space Station. I'm astronaut Kate Rubens, and today we're going to read a book about Rosie Revere, Engineer, by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. This is the story of Rosie Revere, who dreamed of becoming a great engineer. In Lila Greer's classroom at Blue River Creek, young Rosie sat shyly, not daring to speak. But when no one saw her, she peeked in the trash for treasures to add to her engineer's stash. And late at night, Rosie rolled up her sleeves and built in her hideaway under the eaves. Alone in her attic, the moon high above, dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. And when she grew sleepy, she hid her machines far under the bed where they'd never be seen. When Rosie was young, she had not been so shy. She worked with her hair swooping over one eye and made fine inventions for uncles and aunts, a hot dog dispenser and helium pants. The uncle she loved most was zookeeper Fred. She made him a hat to keep snakes off his head, from parts of a fan and some cheddar cheese spray, which everyone knows keeps the pythons away. And when it was finished, young Rosie was proud. But Fred slapped his knee and he chuckled out loud. He laughed till he wheezed and his eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who stood there embarrassed, perplexed, and dismayed. She looked at the cheese hat and then looked away. "I love it," Fred hooted. "Oh, I truly do." But Rosie Revere knew that could not be true. She stuck the cheese hat on the back of her shelf, and after that day kept her dreams to herself. And that's how it went until one autumn day, her oldest relation showed up for a stay. Her great-great-aunt Rose was a true dynamo who'd worked building airplanes a long time ago. She told Rosie of the tale of things she had done and goals she had checked off her list one by one. She gave a sad smile as she looked to the sky. "The only thrill left on my list is to fly. But time never lingers as long as it seems. I'll chalk that one up to an old lady's dreams." That night, as Rosie lay wide-eyed in bed, a daring idea crept into her head. Could she build a gizmo to help her aunt fly? She looked at the cheese hat and said, "No, not I." But questions are tricky, and some hold on tight. And this one kept Rosie awake through the night. So when dawn approached and red streaks lit the sky, young Rosie knew just how to make her aunt fly. She worked and she worked till the day was half gone. then hauled her cheese copter out onto the lawn. She gave her invention a test just to see the ridiculous flop that it might turn out to be. Strapped into the cockpit, she flipped on the switch. The Helio cheese copter sputtered and twitched. It floated a moment and whirled round and round, then froze for a heartbeat and crashed to the ground. Then Rosie heard laughter and turned round to see the old woman laughing and slapping her knee. She laughed till she wheezed and her eyes filled with tears, all to the horror of Rosie Revere, who thought, "Oh no, never, not ever again will I try to build something to sputter or spin, or build with a lever, a switch, or a gear, and I will never be a great engineer." She turned round to leave, but then Great-Great-Aunt Rose grabbed hold of young Rosie and pulled her in close, and hugged her and kissed her and started to cry. "You did it! Hooray! It's the perfect first try. This great flop is over. It's time for the next." Young Rosie was baffled, embarrassed, and perplexed. "I failed," said dear Rosie. "It's just made of trash. Don't you see it? The cheese copter crashed." "Yes," said her great aunt, "it crashed. That is true. But first, it did just what it needed to do. Before it crashed, Rosie, before that, it flew." Your brilliant first flop was a raging success. Come on, let's get busy, get on to the next. She handed a notebook to Rosie Revere, who smiled at her aunt as it all became clear. Life might have its failures, but this was not it. The only true failure can come if you quit. They worked till the sun sneaked away to its bed. Aunt Rose tied her headscarf around Rosie's head and sent her to sleep with a smile ear to ear, to dream the bold dreams of a great engineer. At Blue River Creek, all the kids in grade 2 build gizmos and gadgets and doohickeys too. With each perfect failure, they all stand and cheer, but none quite as proudly as Rosie Revere. Thanks for joining us today on the International Space Station. We have a lot of engineers working for us, and someday I hope we have Rosie Revere working for us too.
Rosie really loved creating new inventions. It takes a bit of imagination and creativity to make something new.
I think our viewers are quite creative and would be able to make neat inventions.
I agree. Should we challenge them?
Yes. All right, everyone. Here's the challenge. You know how Rosie built a flying machine and we returned to outer space? Well, now here's your chance to make a spacesuit. Pretend that one of your favorite stuffed animals is going on an adventure to the moon. What would their spacesuit look like? It would definitely need to have a breathing apparatus and a helmet, and it would need to cover the stuffed animal's entire body.
Build a spacesuit using things from around your home. Some suggested materials are cardboard tubes, tape, glue, scissors, rubber bands, and a ruler to name just a few. Once you have created your stuffed animal spacesuit, send us a picture of it and a description of how it was modified to fit your stuffed animal. Once the inventions are submitted, we'll put them all together in one place so you can see all of them together.
So start inventing. We want to see what you can come up with. And join us next time for Family STEAM at Home. Remember to keep recording your reading days in summer. Keep checking our social media as well as our website for other great programs. Bye!